A baking company is hosting a competition and explicitly saying no white people allowed. Yes, guys, that's apparently what diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, looks like in practice in 2024. We're going to break it all down, but first, welcome back to my channel. I'm Brad Polumbo. I cover all the craziest things on the internet, in our politics, and in the LGBT community from a center-right, moderate perspective. If you're new here, do consider subscribing for more content like this. We're so close to hitting 100,000, I can't wait. And if you get a kick out of this video, don't forget to like and comment with your thoughts as we go along. Now, let's talk about King Arthur Baking Company and this story that's going mega viral and is proving quite controversial. We've got reporting here from the Washington Examiner that a flour company's baking contest will only allow people of color to enter. A flour company is hosting a baking contest that will only allow people of color to participate, they report. King Arthur Baking Company is partnering with Project Potluck for this contest, with the winners receiving mentorship to help them grow their businesses and baking skills, along with a grand prize of $10,000. However, in order to enter, people will need to reach a number of eligibility requirements, including having a business or bakery led by a person of color and being a community member of Project Potluck, among other requirements. Their contest page defines person of color as an Asian or Pacific Islander, Black or African American, Hispanic or Latinx, Indigenous or Native American, Middle Eastern, or North African. So basically anything but white. Project Potluck states on its website that it's focused on helping people of color build successful companies and careers in the consumer packaged goods industry. The organization states many leaders in the CPG industry are overwhelmingly white and that it is here to change that. We believe people of color are powerful AF and even more so when we work together. According to the organization's value section, we commit to being in community with and empowering each other as a way of building our collective power and influence. So the King Arthur Baking Company is now having racially segregated baking contests, and that's considered progressive or woke somehow. I find this particularly funny because the King Arthur Baking Company has been very outspoken about their support for DEI, the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion movement. And on their DEI page of their website, they say that we believe everyone deserves equal access to the joy of baking. Y'all sure about that one? To maintain and continue our history of putting community, our employee owners, and the planet first, we must also address the social injustices that challenge these values. We recognize that the work of fostering an environment of diversity, equity, and inclusion will never end. There will always be more humbling and meaningful work to do. Everyone deserves an equitable seat at the baking table. So I found this story really interesting because it's kind of a microism of the DEI movement overall. Any good-hearted person believes that people of all races should be welcome in all industries and all businesses. Baking, just like any sector, should be totally non-racist, equal and open for all. But do we really need to have special baking competitions for non-whites only? And is that really going to advance racial progress rather than reinforce existing divides? Hence why I think this story is a good example of why people like me, who are concerned about racism and want to live in a racism-free society, still oppose the DEI movement. Sometimes you hear people argue, how could you oppose DEI? What don't you like about diversity and inclusion? These are great things. And I always find that logic funny, because by that same kind of argument, how could anyone criticize the totalitarian and despotic regime of North Korea? After all, the country is officially named the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. Who could oppose democracy and a republic for the people? You get my point, right? That a name of something doesn't necessarily represent what it actually is in practice. Critics of the DEI movement, like me, want to live in a world where race ultimately blends into the background of human existence, where it becomes like eye color or hair color, things nobody really cares about and nobody treats each other differently on the basis of. That's the kind of thing that Martin Luther King Jr. talked about when he said he dreamt of a world where people would be judged on the content of their character, not on the color of their skin. But the DEI movement, in contrast, seems to want to make race one of the most essential and front and center aspects of human life. Taken to its logical extreme, that movement takes you to perverse places like hosting baking competitions only for certain races. And of course, it's just one example, and no baking competition is the end of the world, but we're seeing this kind of thing in many walks of life. Countless colleges have enacted different forms of racially separated graduation ceremonies. Too many companies to count have formed racial affinity groups where employees of different races get together on a regular basis. And the media obsessively covers issues of race and identity, seeming to stress them as aspects of any story even when it's not actually relevant. All of this actually serves to reinforce the divides between racial groups and re-emphasize race as a dividing line among people, which isn't what you should actually want if you oppose racism. In the same way, we have to be very careful about misunderstanding equity as if it's the same thing as equality. Equality is something we should all support. Nobody should be discriminated against or be denied opportunities because of the color of their skin. But equity, on the contrary, is something that often sounds good, but is actually pretty pernicious. Equity requires getting people to the same place, which, because people and groups are different, inevitably means treating them differently on the basis of those demographic traits. The best example of equity in practice is affirmative action. Under this system of higher education admissions, Asian people were openly discriminated against, while other groups, like African American students applying to Ivy League schools, were given preferential treatment. That's fundamentally wrong, just on a moral level, but you're also kidding yourself if you think that treating groups differently on the basis of race is ever going to progress us towards a race-blind, neutral, fair society. But for folks that believe in the DEI movement, that's not what they want. Yet, I still believe that's what most good-hearted Americans do want. I'm glad I wasn't born into a world where people were still segregated by race in restaurants. But I also don't want to live in a world where people have different baking competitions based on the color of their skin. What do you think? And who do you agree with? Let me know in the comments below. I'm curious for your thoughts. And if you're still here, you must have found something interesting or insightful about this video, so do drop a like and comment with your thoughts. And please do consider subscribing. We're so close to 100,000 subscribers on YouTube, and I can't wait to hit that milestone. I'll see you all in my next video, but if you're not sick of me yet, you can go here or here to check out some of my other recent content that you might find interesting.